Technology permeates our daily lives. It is always important to think about what technology should do instead of what it can do. I'm Richard Koh, and welcome to our Tech 101 with our technology strategist. Welcome to Tech 101 with our technology strategist. My name is Richard Koh, and thanks for taking time to join us here again today. Now, today we're going to talk about our intelligent cloud, Azure itself. And as you know, with Azure, we have many different services. So my guest today is Chun Siong. He's a cloud solution architect with Microsoft Singapore. So welcome to the show, Chun Siong.
Hey, thanks, Richard. Thanks.
How are you doing?
Good.
That's great to hear. So what's the topic that you're going to share with us today?
Okay, today I'm going to raise a topic that most of my partners, when I've been talking to them, they raise it up to me. Okay, cost optimization. Right. Over the past few years, when I've been speaking to partners, this topic comes up very regularly. Right. Partners are always asking me, hey, how do I make sure I optimize my cost? It's not necessarily cut down on IT spending or to reduce spending, but rather pay for what they need. Right.
Okay.
So today, probably I'm going to share with our audience 3 topics on Azure, which is on cost optimization, right sizing, and last but not least, reserved instances.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So really stretching your dollar and making sure that you get the value for money itself.
Yes, because when we talk about cloud computing, we're talking about utility, right? Okay, you only pay for what you use. And you want to make sure that you don't do wastage. Example, at home, if you turn on your tap, if you don't use the water, it's going to flow.
There you go. Yeah. That's it. Tell me a little bit more when you think about cost optimization itself. What is typically top of mind? Because I hear from some of our customers like they're worried about cloud sprawl and different development teams that are spinning up cloud services, and I think that's always a concern. What are you hearing from your partners?
One point that they raised to me is that it's very hard to track what is being created and what is being spent, right? In terms of measurability, when you have a large team, okay, be it a development team or IT management team, okay, when they start using their resources, sometimes they leave the company or sometimes they forget to turn it off.
There you go.
Right.
Okay.
Having a visibility or a dashboard to know what exactly is being used, okay, on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, helps you to see that. And you can start to question and say, hey, who is using this? And you might go and do some action to really turn off the tap.
Okay, so there are some alerting capabilities, I suppose?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, that's great. You mentioned a second topic around right sizing itself. Yes. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So often or so when customers, they migrate over from on-prem environment onto the cloud, okay, there's a tendency for them to use a larger instance. Okay, as technology increases, CPU gets faster. Okay, your RAM speed also gets faster. Right. There's also a possibility that you might not need such a big machine compared to on-premise because of all this increase in core speed and speed of your RAM.
Okay.
Right. So Azure Advisor gives you the detail to say, hey, you're using this much amount of CPU resources. You might be able to cut it down by 30% or even 50% just by scaling it down.
Okay, so making sure that the cloud services that you spin up is really fit for use in terms of what you need, rather than just kind of oversizing it in terms of the use that the customers or the partners might need.
Yes.
Okay, then you brought up a third point. I think which is also very interesting around reserve instances. Yes. Tell me more about how reserve instances can work for our partners, for example.
Okay. So once you have migrated your resources, okay, or you've been using your resources on Azure for, let's say, 3 to 6 months, you more or less know how much CPU, okay, is expected, okay, for your workload to run fine.
Okay.
That's why you will start to consider it for a long run, for a long-term period. I might be able to pre-purchase some of these Azure compute credits, right, which we call it as reserve instances. Okay, you can save anywhere between 30 to 60%.
Wow,
okay?
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
You decided to just put in the reserve instances.
Okay, so let's say for applications or services that they are running where there is a very predictable usage pattern itself, they can look at the analytics and the telemetry that's coming from that and then say, hey, you know what, it's probably better to move into a reserve instance type of model for them to be able to wring out some cost savings from that.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Why not I show you a demo and walk you through these 3 points?
Okay, that would be great. Let's go ahead and see the demo then.
All right.
All right, thank you.
When I sign into my Azure subscription, I see a variety of reports that are being pinned to my dashboard. I have things like cost by resource, which shows me the largest resource, in this case, my virtual machine, consuming $40. The disk of the virtual machine consuming $36, backup consuming $29, and all the other services making $176 to date. I'm also able to see my spending rate and forecast. So currently I'm spending around $282 and my forecast to hit $570. If I were to remove resources, the graph should show lower. If I were to add more resources today, the graph should show higher and the forecast should be much higher. If I want to see a breakdown of the day accumulated cost, I'm also able to. And last but not least, I have a custom view. The custom view shows me on a specific day how much each resources is consuming per day. Okay, so I have things like others, I have things like database, disk, streaming jobs, backup vaults, my disk, and virtual machines. If let's say I'm very curious about how much I'm spending for $176 over here, I can just click on my report and it will bring me over to the cost analysis blade. So let it load. If I want to understand, okay, where the breakdown of the accumulated cost comes from, I can just say, hey, look for a table and now group by the resources themselves. And similarly, in the table format, I will see, hey, none. Okay, my virtual machine will be spending the most, around $40. My disk is around $36. Backup is around $29, and the rest of all these resources will make up the others. Next, let's talk about right sizing and reserved instance. And for this case, we'll be using a service called Azure Advisor. You can get to Azure Advisor by searching for Advisor on the search bar, or on the menu on the left, just click on Advisor. There are 5 main aspects which Advisor will give recommendations on, and they are cost, the security, reliability, operational excellence or the compliance, and the performance of your resources on Azure. And for this demonstration, we'll just be looking at the cost aspect. I have a SQL database which Advisor has picked up. In terms of cost, he has realized, hey, this SQL DB is underutilized. And what I can do is I can right size it and I can have a potential savings of $418 a year. If we were to look at a subscription, which is heavier on some other resources, say for example, virtual machines. Okay, these are some of the recommendations they have. Things like getting reserved instance, okay, and to right size or shut down underutilized virtual machine. So from here, same thing as my SQL database. He has recommended me to resize these 2 virtual machines, and it will give me a potential savings of close to $4,000 a year. And if you take a look at reserved instances, Advisor has discovered that based on these 5 virtual machines, if I apply reserved instances, I can have savings from 15% to 58%. And as a whole, I'll be able to save $6,500 a year. And with that, we have talked about how are we able to use dashboarding to identify resources and how much they're spending, do things like right sizing, and to apply reserved instances on resources which has the greatest impact.
Wow, thanks Chun Siong. That was a great demo. I really loved it because when I saw the demo itself, I think it few light bulbs came up in my head. But I have a few questions, for the benefit of our viewers as well. When we looked at the dashboard itself, I noticed that one of the tiles, it says custom view, and you had it in a daily format. So tell me a little bit about what motivates you to configure it that way.
So from a dashboard point of view, Azure allows you to customize all the granularity and in terms of the filter. What I wanted to do was to make sure that I monitor my costs on a daily basis, right? So by default, you see cumulative cost, and most of the time, if you have spike in the cost, okay, you might only see at the end of the month. But what I want to see is at the end of the day, is there any increase in spending for the past 24 hours? So I can take immediate action if there is
Right. So catch it when it happens and not wait till the end of the month itself.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Now, also, I noticed that from the advisor recommendation, there was this recommendation around right sizing. So tell me a little bit about how Azure does it.
Okay, so let's assume that you're using a series of virtual machines, right? So Azure monitors your CPU usage continuously over the past few days or even the past few months. What Azure Advisor does is it takes all this telemetry over a period of time to average it out. And it understands, hey, maybe for the past few months for VMA, you are using only 10% of the CPU, right? That's where you say, hey, maybe you want to scale down that VMA. Whereas for VMB, you might say, hey, you're using around 80% on the average. That's where you want to scale it up. So on the average, if you use the recommendations from Azure Advisor, will give you the best recommendations on how to size your VMs accordingly.
Wow, thank you, Chun Siong. This is really insightful. I think this is a very, very useful tool and surely encourage all our partners and customers to use it. And where do partners and customers go to learn more about this?
Okay. If you're interested to know more, go to www.azure.com and search for cost management.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So, folks, you heard it from Chun Siong. This is a great tool that you can use on Azure itself. And I'm sure with the kind of cost savings that you can wring out of your cloud services, you might be able to fund your next department morale event. So join us at our next Tech 101 with our technology strategists. So see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.